Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. New Kids on the Block just put tickets on sale for their 2022 Mixtape Tour, which wraps at Capital One Arena in Washington, D.C. next July. I spoke with founding member Jonathan Knight about forming the band in the Boston area, breaking up in 1994, and reuniting in 2008. Hey, Jonathan. Hey, thanks so much for joining us on WTOP.
Yeah, so good to be here.
We're talking with Jonathan Knight, of course, of New Kids on the Block, which just announced a new tour, and it's going to be swinging by Washington, D.C. here at Capital One Arena. We're the last stop, July 23rd. Thanks so much for doing this. So is this, I guess, the first tour back since COVID, or how's the last year and a half been for you guys?
Yeah, the past year and a half's been really quiet, but it's actually was a good break to take the time off. But it's going to be so great to get back on tour and be on stage again. And obviously, we're saving the best for last by ending our tour in Washington, D.C. on July 23rd. That's actually my manager's hometown. So it's kind of like, you know, when we all go there, we kind of feel like we're at home with him. And it's always a great place to play.
Gotcha. That's cool. So he can kind of show you around after the tour. It'll be your last stop on the tour, so you can kind of celebrate after, maybe.
Yeah, have a few days off and do some sightseeing.
Wander around the nation's capital. Love it. Well, so remind us, our listeners, maybe if they haven't caught one of your tours in a couple of years, who all do we got in the lineup? Do we got the full lineup? All the new kids?
We did a mixtape tour, our last tour, and it was so much fun that we said we have to do this again. So last tour we had Salt and Pepper, and we, just fell in love with them. So we asked Salt and Pepper to come back. We have the iconic Rick Astley, and we have En Vogue. So it's gonna be so amazing. I mean, I grew up listening to Rick Astley, and En Vogue was such a part of like the 90s for me, just, playing their album over and over and over. So to get us all on stage is just going to be so much fun.
Oh, that's four huge artists right there for sure. We're all going to get Rick rolled again. Awesome. Well, whenever I have someone, of your stature on, I love hearing your sort of, your musical journey. So remind our listeners, Jonathan, where did you grow up? You and your brother Jordan?
Well, we all grew up in Boston. So we have a big Boston influence with Aerosmith and New Edition. And, there's so many great acts that have come out of Boston.
So that's sort of those were the acts like New Edition, Aerosmith, and stuff that you grew up listening to around the house, or what did your parents play? What were your early touchdowns?
Yeah, well, it's weird because I'm the second youngest, so we had older brothers and sisters that listened to totally different music than us, and our parents, I don't even know what they were listening to, probably some 1950s stuff that I never heard of.
Right.
But growing up, we were pretty much into like the R&B and all that stuff. But then my brothers and sisters were more into the classic rock. So, growing up, it's just always been different music playing in our house at any given day.
Gotcha. All right. And then how did you actually meet the rest of the guys? Do you remember when you first met Donnie Wahlberg and Joey McIntyre and the rest?
I do. Me, Jordan, Danny, and Donnie went to elementary school together, and it was on a playground at the Trotter Elementary School in Roxbury, Mass, that I first met Donnie. I was actually friends with his older brother, and I remember him bringing me out to the playground. We were, playing kickball, and he introduced me to Donnie, and the rest is history. We've just been really great friends ever since, the five of us. And then it was in our early days of getting together, our producer really wanted a young Michael Jackson type. So they put out their feelers to go find Joe. And Joe, it's weird because right now we're only maybe 4 years apart. But when I met him, he was 12 and I was probably 16. And the age difference just felt so weird back then. Like he was just this real young kid. And poor guy, he got the brunt of it when we were younger because he was so much younger than us. We used to just, pick on him and all that stuff. I'm actually surprised Joe stayed in the New Kids.
He was the most kid of the kids for sure at the time.
Yeah, he was the little guy that just got bullied by the rest of the New Kids.
Right. Well, so real quick, I want to unpack something you said. So you said you knew Donnie's older brother first. Was that Mark Wahlberg or was the other Wahlberg?
Well,
Robert?
I knew both of them. I used to hang out with Mark in elementary school, and it was more Bobo, Donnie's brother, that I was like more friendly with and hanging out. I mean, I'd see Mark in the hallways, and he'd always be this little trickster. He'd always love to like flip you down the hall and all this crazy stuff. So
Right. Now, did you all sing on the playground, like, or was it more just the normal roughhousing sports and stuff?
no, we went to like an art school, and
Okay.
part of that art school, you had to do a musical instrument. Everybody was in the chorus. You had to do like, theater. They had dance lessons. It was just a really great school at the time to encourage kids to get into the arts.
Gotcha. So when and how did you get discovered by? I guess was it Maurice Starr? And how did it's like I know you originally you were called like Nanook or something. how did Maurice discover you guys for that record contract and then also deciding on the name New Kids on the Block, the name change? Like how did that all come together?
Well, we coming from Boston, Maurice produced all of New Edition's albums. And then they had a falling out, and really Maurice put us together out of spite. And we had a local manager that managed us, and she kind of just started putting her feelers out, looking around, the neighborhoods and driving by playgrounds and seeing if kids were dancing and all that stuff. And the first person she found was Donnie, and Donnie was driving just around the neighborhood, trying to think of kids from back in school at the Trotter, who he thought would be good for the group. And he just reached out to us all individually, and we went to the studio where Maurice at his house. He had a studio in his house, and one by one we auditioned, and just really never thought that the New Kids would become what they are today. We were performing in street fairs and festivals and all this stuff. And just even that, we were so thankful to be able to perform in front of people. And then then the Tiffany tour came along, and it just blew up from there. And it still blows my mind that we did such a big career in our early days, took so much time off, and then came back for what was supposed to be just a reunion tour of like, I think it was like 32 shows. And that did so well that we just said, okay, let's just keep on going. And it's so weird that we've been together the second time around longer than we were the first time around.
Wow, that's so wild. Yeah, not only did you come full circle, you kind of lapped yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Well, my listeners will kill me if we don't talk about some of the, your big famous hits. So, and there's too many to really talk about all of them. But tell me about, You Got It, the Right Stuff. That was off the Hangin' Tough album. But, You Got It, the Right Stuff. Memories of putting that one together, or recording it, or writing it, or anything?
The recording it, that was oh my goodness, I'm dating myself now. That was what, 30 something years ago. So I don't really remember being in the studio. I remember hearing that song for the first time and just loving it so much. But I do remember filming the videos because that was when we were a little more established and the record company really saw the potential. And we got to go to New Orleans and film the video. And it was, the first video where there was like, hair and makeup and wardrobe and, all these cameras. It was a big production. So I just remember that and just feeling really special that we're making this really cool video. And I think videos were more popular back then than they are now. They're not so elaborate. So just filming videos for that album were so much fun.
Oh yeah, for sure. And you're right. Music video there in the late 80s and then early 90s that was where it was at. Cool. Well, that song went to number 3, but I'll Be Loving You Forever went to number 1. Why do you think that song works so well? The great love song.
It's just a classic love song that I think a lot of people can relate to. And it could go so many ways. It could be about your dog. It could be about your wife, your husband, your aunts, your uncles, your grandparents. So I just think it's such a great ballad.
Oh yeah, and then of course we'd be remiss not to talk about the title song on that album, "Hanging Tough." That's just that's one of your most iconic ones. But yeah, why do you think that one works so well?
I think it's just has that really good anthem feel. It's it's a weird song for me because actually when I first heard that song, it it wasn't one of my favorites. But over the years, after singing it so many times, and it's a song we always end our show with, and it just feels so good, and it's just so uplifting, and it's a great song.
Great. Well, we'd be here all day if we went through all of them. Cover Girl and Didn't I Blow Your Mind? This one's for the children. There's so many tonight. But one more I would like to get a soundbite from you is Step by Step. That one, I mean, right out of the gate, it's an earworm right out from the first from the first line.
Step by Step. It's really weird as an artist. You really never know if something is going to work or not. I think you put your heart and soul into it, and you just hope that people are going to love it. And luckily we just hit the nail on the head so many times with these songs, and that they were received and that they did so well.
Wait, how did you come up with the idea on that one? Because don't each one of you guys takes a different step, right? Like Danny does step 1, Donnie does step 2, etc. What are you, step 5?
Yeah. I don't know how that came about. I don't know. That was just something maybe in the studio creatively, it just kind of worked its way out.
Definitely. And I believe you mentioned music videos. I think Mark Wahlberg actually showed up in the video for that one too. So
yes, I think he did. Yeah, I think he did. Like I said, again, it's been so long.
Been a while. Well, you mentioned sort of how, you guys sort of, disbanded the band and then brought them back together, and you've been around longer now. But remind us what was behind the thought process there of taking the big break there? Why had you guys just been running a little too hard there? You wanted to try other stuff, and what was sort of the decision?
I mean, it was a lot of factors. I mean, we were just young kids thrown on a bus, performing 360 days a year for at least 4 years, and we were having internal conflict as well as external conflict. People's musical tastes were changing, and people just started to shy away from the pop music, and they were more into the grunge. So it just got to a point where it just kind of fizzled out. I was the first one to jump ship. I was like, 22 years old, and I was just like, there's got to be, something else out here in life. And I think a lot of us felt the same way. And, taking 15 years off from each other, I think really in the long run helped, because, we all got to go out and experience life and be able to be ourselves, and just find out who we are, because so much of our identity was we're the new kids from Boston, this pop group. And I think it just gave us time to mature, and coming back into the reunion, that really helped, because I think we all understood each other, and we were able to be adults and work on conflict and, just be able to complement each other and know people's strengths and weaknesses. And it's just been such a blessing to come back together and work again as adults.
Right, for sure. So internally, you're finding out, that it's been a blessing to have you all back together. What about externally? Are you surprised or pleasantly surprised at how the fans have sort of stuck by you? Speak to sort of the concept that, a lot of the people that show up to your show probably, were, I don't know, young girls or teenagers, maybe even young boys. I mean, I knew you guys. My cousins had the new kids dolls and all that stuff. But they go from your posters on the wall, and then now they're older, and either did they come to see you for nostalgia or maybe even introduce their own kids? I mean, it's got to be wild. Did they just come up to you all the time saying, I had your poster?
Yeah, I mean, I hear all the time, just from random strangers on the street, like, you were my first concert. And, I think that helped a lot, that our fans were, young teenagers, and they were just finding out about love and having crushes. And, I mean, most of our fans were 15, 16, 17 years old. And, now to come back, and our fan base is anywhere from 35 to, 55. And the great thing is that, so many of our fans now have kids, and they're bringing their kids to the shows. So we're kind of expanding our audience, which is such a great thing.
For sure. Well, I mean, your legacy sort of speaks for itself. I mean, there's sort of before New Kids on the Block and after New Kids on the Block. You changed a lot of things. After you guys, there was, Backstreet Boys and NSYNC and 98 Degrees, Boys to Men, all those that sort of followed after you. You name it. What, One Direction, Jonas Brothers, all the rest, up to today. But do you guys sort of look back fondly and think, wow, we sort of kicked off a whole boy band era. We were the OGs of the boy bands.
I mean, I think that there were a lot of boy bands before us. I think that we just kind of put it more mainstream on the map. And, I think a lot of record companies and a lot of artists saw that model worked. I mean, for instance, Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, they were both formed by a man who, followed our career very intensely. And, he kind of modeled all of their careers after, our success. I'm not going to sit here and take credit for that, because obviously these guys, just like us, started out humbly. They probably played in, these small nightclubs and long hours, and, they put the work in, so that's how they became successful.
Absolutely. And you raise a good point. Yeah. Long before you guys, I guess, Jackson 5, hell, the Beatles were a boy band in their own way.
Yeah. The Monkees.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, but you know what I mean? You guys sort of, it became its own sort of sound, a pop boy band thing, from your era on with the groups we referenced. Well, cool. I appreciate your time. Before we run, I would love to hear your thoughts on, each of the guys of your buddies in the band. You don't have to embarrass them, but say something nice about each one. Like what does your bro Jordan bring to the group?
Oh man, that's like put me on the spot.
Say something nice about your bro.
I'll say something nice about all of us. It's just, I think it's really great that we all have very different personalities, very different looks, different sounding voices. It's and that's what I say about, going ahead to NKOTB version 2.0, is that, now we all kind of have our, we all have our roles that we give to each other, whether it's somebody looking over contracts or this or that, or, we just all have something special.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then random final off the wall question. When you see Donnie on the big screen in The Sixth Sense shooting Bruce Willis in what would
I,
become one of the greatest twists of movie history, what are
you
you
know,
guys? Do you remember watching that the first time? That's my boy.
I'm so glad you brought that up because we had broken up and I knew Donnie was doing movies, but I didn't know what movies he was in. And I sat and watched The Sixth Sense. I remember being at the movie theater with friends.
Same.
Did not know it was him. He looked totally different. And it wasn't until he laughed in the movie, I was like, holy wow, that's Donnie. And then found out it was him. And I love hearing the stories of him when he did that movie, like just losing all that weight and transforming his look so much. So yeah, that was a real cool experience.
I'm getting goosebumps thinking about that scene, that the broken glass window, and then you see him in his, underwear, all emaciated. It's terrifying. Of course, you didn't recognize him.
That was such a great movie.
It really, I think it's one of the all-time greats for sure. All right, well, you guys, I guess let's leave it with this one. You got the Hollywood Walk of Fame. You were broken up for so long. You finally are there. You're getting to see your star there. How rewarding was that, or any of these sort of lifetime achievement accolades? Like, does it sort of validate in your own mind you knew you were a big deal, but it sort of speaks to that the rest of us never forgot about you guys.
No, I mean, and I think in our minds we actually don't think we were that much of a big deal. So anytime we're recognized, it's just such a great compliment. And I think being on the inside looking out, I don't really know the true impact that we've had on people's lives. You hear stories and all that, but we didn't live their life. So I really think that for me, not only giving people music and concerts and giving them happiness that way, I think just the fact that who we are gives them internal joy. I think of stories of fans going through hard times and just they always say, like, you got me through. And to me, that is all the validation I need in the world.
Absolutely. You perfectly said. Perfect place to leave it. Glad to see you. You guys are all hanging tough, and it's still after all these years. And we can't wait to see you at Capital One Arena for that final stop on the tour. So Jonathan Knight, thanks so much for joining us. This was a blast.
All right. Thank you so much, Jason.
All right. Take it easy.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for joining us on Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Remember to hit the subscribe button and give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time. I wanted to take a second to tell you about an app I really enjoy. Living in the D.C. area is great, and Podcast D.C. gathers all of the local shows that I like all in one local app. Health, sports, local news, politics, and so much more. Podcast D.C. is the new local app with hundreds of D.C. area podcasts to choose from. I can earn exciting rewards just for listening and share the podcasts I love instantly. Available in the App Store or in Google Play, listen local with Podcast D.C.